All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CCTV Africa.
Violence against children cost South Africa more than $17 billion, roughly 6% of its GDP in 2015. In the first study of its kind conducted in South Africa, Save the Children indicates that the figure does not account for cases of abuse that are unreported to police. South Africa recorded nearly 1 million cases of child abuse last year. Sumitra Naidu has more.
On average, over 58% of all South African children between birth and 18 years are suffering some form of violence. According to a study commissioned by Save the Children, sexual, physical and emotional abuse, as well as general neglect, is on the rise.
As South Africans become numb to the issue of violence against children, we see it and we page, and move to the following page. We sympathize for a day and we continue with our lives. And so for us, we felt that if we're going to have all of these aspirations that we have as a country, if we don't deal with the protection of children, we're not going to achieve what we want to achieve. And we owe it to children to have a better life.
The cost of this violence to South Africa's GDP was in the region of $17 billion in 2015 and is expected to be higher in 2016. The study looked at the cost to healthcare services, police and social services intervention and lost productivity.
If you think about it in this way, if somebody has been injured during a rape and needs to spend time in hospital, then needs to spend time at home recovering, then can only go back to work, say, half-time for a while. All of that is time that is lost to the economy and to that person, of course. And that's one of the concerning things. I mean, this is over 6% of our GDP, and it's an underestimation.
It was an extremely complex process to collect data, and not all areas were accounted for. But the current estimated cost of violence against children is alarming enough. The new research proves valuable in linking common illnesses and health anomalies, looking at the long-term impact on children as they grow into adults, and is set to provide direction for the way forward.
There were huge swathes of costs that we just couldn't get because the data isn't reported that way. So, for instance, this includes no criminal justice costs, and violence against children costs the criminal justice system an enormous amount. It doesn't actually include what the health system actually spends, say, on injuries. It's just got an estimation of what that costs. So when we look at this figure, it's the best that we can get at the moment without doing a 2 or 3 year in-depth budgeting study alongside government, which might be the next step.
The study is the first of its kind to be commissioned in South Africa, the results of which will be used to inform a plan of action to prevent and stop the scourge of child abuse in the country.
So we would like to see an intense intervention that begins at a community level, that begins with the child themselves, that begins within the first 1,000 days of life, so that if we strengthen your ability to be resilient as a child within the first 1,000 days of life, then we know we are bringing up a very firm and resilient individual who's going to be able to face life.
While this was a privately funded study, government and ordinary South Africans are being urged to participate in efforts to stop violence against children or bear the brunt of this growing cost of inaction. Sumitra Naidu, CCTV, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, staying in South Africa, the country's treasury says it supports the recommendation of a national minimum wage of $245 a month. The recommendation comes from a government-appointed advisory panel. Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan says the panel's report is an important milestone in the government's efforts to reduce inequality. Supporters say a minimum wage will stimulate economic growth. However, critics have raised concerns that it could lead to increased unemployment as companies will be unable to afford